I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to The Conversation with Al McFarlane. I'm glad to be here and glad to have you along today as well. It's Friday, it's Thursday, May 25th, 2023, May 25th, a day of infamy in this city and around the world, the day of the execution, the murder, the lynching of George Floyd here in South Minneapolis. And over the course of the day, and I think over the course of the weeks ahead, we have to always reflect on the tragedy, the horror, but also reflect on the resilience of our people and the demand and the move towards reconciliation, the move towards reparation, the move towards restoration. All of this brought into sharper, clearer, more powerful focus by the attention created with the murder of George Floyd on this day 3 years ago. Before we begin, I want to say sort of a reminder note. You know, we've come through this period of transition and unsettledness. Part of it was due to the COVID vaccine epidemic, pandemic, and then the George Floyd incident. All of these things compounding and complicating our lives, making everything uncertain. And though we've declared an end to the COVID-19 emergency, both in the country and in the state, we want to keep reminding you on behalf of our partners at Minnesota Department of Health that you still need to pay attention. And you pay attention in part by testing still, by following protocols to keep yourself and your family and people that you come in contact with safe. You know, washing hands religiously, often, and just being very careful. Testing, if you get to where you think you might have been exposed or have the symptoms that we know about, get a test. They're available, they're easy to get, they're free. Be tested, know your status. And finally, the vaccines are there, they work. Get vaccinated and keep asking everybody you know that you come in contact with, have you been vaccinated? Encourage them to be vaccinated. So we'll keep bringing that message to you day after day because it's a critical message. And we want our community that was impacted, I think, more than many, by the pandemic. We want us to have a response that will move us towards safety, health in the future. I also want to ask you to support this program by going to our YouTube channel and becoming a subscriber. So you might be watching us right now on YouTube at Black Press USA. Thank you if you are. You may be watching the Inside News YouTube channel, but you could also be connecting with us on any of three Facebook platforms. We have the Al McFarlane Facebook platform, we have the Black Press USA Facebook, and we have Inside News Facebook. If you're on any of those, thank you for being here. We appreciate you being our friend or a follower, but we want you to go over to the YouTube Inside News MN and become a subscriber there. Finally, we're also streaming live to Twitter and we're streaming live to LinkedIn. Again, wherever you're joining us from, put a note in the comment section. Say hello to us and friends around the world, and tell your friends to join us here as well. Well, today we've got a great program. As always, we always try to deliver what we call robust conversation. And I'm just going to tell you the things we're going to touch on, and then we'll jump right into it. I'm going to touch on, as kind of the main theme today, looking at Minnesota's, the signing of the budget by the governor and what that means for the Democrats and what it means for our community. I'm going to look at the effort to legalize recreational marijuana in Minnesota, what that means for our community, for the Black community. But we're going to start off with our hot news topic, and that'll be a story on the passing of the rock legend Tina Turner. Pleased to say that I'm going to be joined today for the entire program by my colleague and companion who's joining me from Bahia, from Brazil. And Yogi Mestre, Yogi Sena, and I will be holding down the duties of hosting today. Brother Yogi, good to see you. How you doing? Welcome as always.
Greetings from Bahia. I'm
All
doing
right.
very well.
Listen, let me jump right into it. You know, rock legend Tina Turner. has died at the age of 83. And this is an article posted at the Black Press USA by Stacy Brown. He's reporting this from the NNPA Newswire. We're presenting it in Insight News online today. And Tina Turner, is known as the queen of rock and roll. She grew in legend and stature after she overcame a bitter divorce to her musician husband, Ike Turner. We know the story because we saw it in the movie. She's died. She died yesterday at the age of 83. Her family confirmed her death in a statement on Wednesday yesterday, noting that she died peacefully at her home near Zurich, Switzerland. And starting with her performances with her ex-husband Ike, she injected uninhibited volcanic stage presence into pop. So said Rolling Stones' Brittany Spanos in a tribute to her. Spanos said that even with the choreographed backup singers, both with Ike and during her own career, Turner seemed never seemed to rein in. She was all out all the time. Her influence on rock and R&B and soul singing were also, and performance were also immeasurable. Her delivery influenced everyone from Mick Jagger to Mary J. Blige. Her high energy stage presence, which included an array of gravity defying wigs, was passed down to people like Janet Jackson and Beyonce. Well, rest in peace, Tina Turner. You've been a gift to humanity. And, Yoji, you were telling us before the show that she had a huge presence in Brazil as well. What's the word there?
Yes, right now in São Paulo there is a big museum exhibit about her life. That started like a month or two ago, so prior to her death. That is one of those big culture productions. And here in Brazil, it's where she had the biggest crowd in one place. She played in the Rock in Rio, you know, and so it was very significant here. And for her, it's where she broke the record for audience in one place, one where she had more people back watching her. And she also has influenced characters in Brazilian popular culture, like some characters on the telenovelas that were inspired on her. And as I say all the time, that this strong connection there is between the African American culture and the Afro Brazilian people. So she here yesterday when she in the moment that she died, the news channel interrupt talking about politics and talked about her for into the night, doing retrospectives
Amazing.
and yeah,
Yeah. Well,
it's
it's so,
just
it's so
amazing.
good to hear this from you, Brother Yoji, because too often we here in North America, in the United States, even take our own culture, our own genius for granted. And we are so used to being oppressed and suppressed and disregarded that we take on the same characteristics of disregarding our own activity and our own greatness and underappreciating it while the world understands what it is and will elevate it. So it's good for us here in Minnesota to hear you in Bahia talking about the impact Tina Turner, this artist, has made on that community. And we think that that probably is true around the world. But let me pivot. Thank you for those comments. Another story that you have followed is a story about a world-class athlete, Vinicius Jr. Tell about that. What's going on with that? What's the backstory
Well,
and what's the issue?
Vinny Jr. He's one of is a prodigy in soccer, right? And he's the principal player of the Real Madrid, which is the number one soccer team in the world. and he has been consistently being victim of uh, public racism in the soccer stadiums in Spain, and not only in the stadiums but also in the cities where he goes to play with his teams. One of those there was like a something like a doll, a black doll with the wearing his jersey hanging off a bridge in the city and saying, that he's hated. So every time that he's playing in cities that is not the whole Madrid, where his team is the local, he's subjected to be called monkeys or subjected to noises imitating monkeys. And so in this time, he's been very vocal, and the difference is this has been happening consistently in Spanish soccer, right? And even it's like because this has caused a big discussion here, where the new government of Brazil, through its ministries, has interpelled the Spanish government, like what's going on. So, Spain invented racism as we understand today. It was invented,
What do you mean by that?
well, it started with the Reconquest when the Catholic kings took back the Iberic Peninsula from the Moors, and subsequently came the Inquisition. And in the Inquisition, it was one of the roots is the root of the present day racism, presumption of superiority of Europeans in relationship to others that were based by the appearance of the color skin
Hmm.
and from being from different religions, you know. So and how the Spanish operate in America. But coming back to Vini, and he's been very vocal, which is a high contrast with other players in the past that some of them ignored or some of them use like a humoristic way of dealing with it. He's been tackling head on and giving speeches that put in check the position of the governing body of Spanish soccer, which is presided by a person that belongs to the party called Vox, that is one of those new extreme right parties that popped up in Europe in the last 10 years. So that until yesterday, the attitude of the president of La Liga, which is the championship, was to blame Vini for the acts that were done against him, because supposedly how he commemorates the goals, he dances like most of the soccer players do in the last 10 years. They dance when they do a goal, when they
Hmm.
score. But Vini Jr. is very, very dark and articulated. So he, in certain way, he's putting into line his future success. The possibility that he can be ostracized, like Colin Kaepernick
Hmm.
was, for example. And so this case is been a big deal since it happened in the weekend, where also in the mainstream media is being talked about all the experiences of the athletes in the United States fighting, or how they react, or how the racists react in American sports. You know.
Well, it just goes to show you that the battle that we are fighting here in North America are common across the planet, throughout the African diaspora, and it. I think it's instructive that we not see ourselves through a parochial lens, as if our situation here in Minnesota is unique, and because it's not what we've experienced here. And I'm referring to George Floyd and Philando Castile and Brother Clark and others. That has happened, Brother Wright out in Brooklyn Center. Happens in every community around the country, and I dare say probably in every community around the planet where there is a political machinery, a cultural machinery that wants to control and maintain power and sees itself doing that by suppressing people of African descent or people that are different from them. Let me move on and bring that focus in. Thanks for that report, Yogi. Let's bring in some other people to focus on uh, these issues right here in Minnesota. As I mentioned at the beginning, we wanted to talk about the uh, outcomes of Minnesota's historic legislative session, historic for several reasons. Number one, the Senate was presided over by our own Senator Bobby Joe Champion, an African American legislator from this neighborhood, North Minneapolis, and in a great position of power and control and of visibility. Uh, the Senate and the House have record numbers of Black and other persons of color. So there's a new feeling, a new vibe, a new energy. And this group sees itself as committed and responsible for delivering transformative engagement, resources, and money to our communities. And I think that they have done that in a way that is unprecedented. We'll talk about that momentarily. And the other thing is that it's unique because we have what they call the trifecta: governor, a Democrat, the Senate led by a Democrat, the House led by a Democrat, and that a majority in the legislature with the Democratic governor meant things could be done without being stopped by the Republicans, and things were done. We want to talk about that. Among them, the state has moved to legalize recreational marijuana as well. That's controversial on one level. What's not controversial is that the laws governing use of marijuana were laws that penalized Black people, derailed young people's lives, that created another false uh, denigration of Black people and Black culture. And now that the science and the practicality and the open use of marijuana and the change in the public attitude about marijuana has happened, how do we ensure that we experience uh, what must be called as equity, reparations, fairness in the revenue streams associated with that and other elements of serving our state? Well, I'm pleased to have my friend Al Flowers and my friend uh, from Brother Thomas Berry from the Black Civic Network to join the conversation. And what I wanted you guys to do, brothers, is just sort of walk us through what you feel were some of the gains that the Black community in particular, people of color in general, may have experienced or are experiencing in this legislative session. Al, let me start with you, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Al, and I was over there yesterday as the governor signed the bill, but Al, your paper been carrying the fact that we had a UBLA and we had a list of things we wanted to do on disparities that in the African American community, and we didn't get that part done. We didn't get the disparity part done because we feel like equity is for it goes to everybody, and everybody don't have the disparities that we have in our community. So, but we put up a good fight as African Americans to say, hey, these resources got to get back to our community, and we was over there the whole time the session, and we met with the governor after that. Myself, Thomas Berry, and Cynthia Wilson, a lot of more people that hadn't sat down with the governor. So we made some progress there, and we got to talk about the disparities because the equity ain't gonna take care of the disparities. What we've been talking about for many years. About these what was happening in our community, but it'll keep us right, keep us right there. Now getting into the equity, Al, we got to make sure we get it. We got to make sure that we get it in our community because we done had this before. So I'm not gonna jump up and down until we figure out how we access those equity packages, and whether it's in business development, whether it's in housing, whether it's education or public safety, I'm not going to get comfortable. I'm meeting with people like Meta and NDC right now. I'm not waiting till I didn't wait till the governor signed the bill. I'm meeting with them now, saying, okay, how do we access that? And you'll become key in this because we got to communicate. The people that got the revenue, they got to communicate through our black media. It must be big deals going on, educating our community about the equity. So I done turned from the disparities with disappointment now because they had $18 billion. They should have been able to put aside some direct investment in our community out that 18 billion. So that's why I'm glad we got the equity, but it's time for us to deal with the disparities. But right now, how we got to deal with the disparities is through this equity that a lot of people are getting out, and we got to make sure that they're coming to you, coming to our black media in our community, and putting out this information. This is what I got, in meeting with you. And that's what I'll be talking about. No, you need to meet with the black media. They need to tell our people how they can access it, because we don't know how to access some of these dollars like other communities. And they got more going with them, business wise, all these different issues. They got a lot going there. So that's why I'm still in a fight. I don't switch from, okay, we didn't get the disparities, even though the governor agreed at African American Lobby Day that everything we did was legit, but the legislature went a different way, and their way was this equity, what we talking about now. Now it doesn't mean nothing to me, because I want to see how are we gonna get it? How are we gonna get this equity? How do we get it? How do we access it when we don't? When we typically ain't been in that arena? And the people that's been in there, they know how to access it. So that's what I've been talking to Thomas Berry about, Cynthia Wilson, even Senator Champion. How do we access it now? And I think the black media are going to be the key to this. If we salvage anything out of this $18 billion, a lot of people got some individual dollars in our community, but that doesn't out of 18 billion, there's really nothing. And I'll leave it at that. Let Thomas, because he can talk about this more eloquent. He was there. There was several community members that never been to the Capitol that was there, that we took into the Capitol to let them see, no, this is how we got to fight, because we don't have a lobbyist in our community. So that's basically what we did with the UBLA bill. We took it up to the revisor's office, got hearings on some of the stuff, didn't get hearings on some, and that was a little inexperience from myself on what I should have did when we got through. You know that the armchair quarterback, you could think about, oh boy, I wish I would have did this. Sure. There's a lot of things I wish I would have did, but I tried to do the best what I could to fight for those disparities. And now I got to fight for the disparities through the equity. So it's just more work. But the key thing is that we have to communicate. They got to get to Insight News. They got to get to conversation with Al McFarlane. I should be telling them, no, you need to go on this week as an activist, put my activist and freedom fighter hat on, talking to people, even though we know some of them. But you got to be on the radio. You got to commit to marketing to our community, because you fought us and said we gonna go the equity way. Okay, we're gonna go the equity way. Now you got to bring it to us, Al, and they really must do it this time. I'm passionate about that. I've told the legislatures that we made a dent over there, but we didn't get it the way we wanted it. But we can utilize this, what they did with this equity with Senator Champion and what they got passed. We have to utilize that. We cannot lose on all this money that came out. And like I said, $18 billion, we asked for $200 million just to go to African American the deal with direct investment and disparities. And they wanted to do it this way, so we got to fight this way. And we used to fighting. We used to fighting it.
Let me bring Thomas Berry in. Thomas, brother, how you doing? Good to see you, man.
I'm doing great. Sir, how you doing today?
Excellent. Take a minute just to remind and refresh people on your work, your mission as one of the principals in the Black Civic Network, and you can talk about 12 Watch as well.
Well, I am the program director over at Black Civic Network, which is the only 501c4 organization in the state of Minnesota that focuses on political needs of African Americans. Myself and Nick Muhammad, one of our main focuses have been reparations. So we do have a bill that is authored by Senator Champion, but we worked hand in hand with Brother Al Flowers on his legislative piece in the last session. And I'll tell you, that $200 million ask that they were asking for was things that myself and Nick Muhammad felt like would have been great for our community to add some infrastructure so that we can make sure that we can deal with some of the structural racism issues that we have throughout the Twin Cities. Brother Al did a great job. He went around and he asked for all organizations around the Twin Cities that were African American to be a part of it. He didn't close any doors on anyone that wanted to sit in. He was quite welcoming to everyone. Meeting with the governor, we talked about everything that's on the table, right? We talked about healthcare. We talked about public safety. We talked about economics. We talked about housing. The governor even insisted that, hey, this was the time that for our community that we needed those dollars. Unfortunately, we fell short in a lot of ways, and it wasn't because of effort. Really, even though we do have a record number of melanated people inside of the state Senate as well as House of Representatives, we really don't have the same amount of African Americans that we once had in strategic places. And I think that kind of hurt our cause a little bit more than anything else. I believe that, Brother Al was able to lean upon a lot of the freshman state reps to kind of carry some of the bills. And it was a little technicalities here and there that they need to learn their way around. But also, let's be honest, even though we didn't get exactly what we want, 29 million in economic development, that's a start. So how do we get through to the meters and others?
So 29 million did come through, right?
It came through.
To where? How does that show up? Where does it show up?
Well, so here's the thing about this, and this is what Brother Al Flowers was talking about. That 29 million, it came through, but that is a catch-all for all groups inside of the Twin Cities. They can say that they could allot some specifically for us, but if we don't have the know-how where to get the money through META, then we will be locked out of that 29 million as well. So I don't want to make it seem like it's just that it's a loss. It has potential. It has good potential. I won't say great potential. I think the 200 million was great potential. This has good. The
29 million is META and Neon, or just META?
If I'm not mistaken, it's just META. I could be wrong, but I do believe that it is META. And that 29 million, while it is important that we take we take advantage of having access to those funds, a lot of the people inside of our community that could use that money need to have the know-how on how to access those dollars.
What's the background on the Black Civic Network? I've watched you and Nick Muhammad for a number of years, and you bring a wonderful analysis and capacity to explain complex matters in ways that make ordinary people see and understand what our interests are in the political arena. But take another minute and talk about the vision of that work.
So our vision at Black Civic Network is quite simple. We believe that everything starts with the family first. And we feel like that, especially in the state of Minnesota, a lot of the things that's focused in our communities are typically around single parenthood. And it kind of promotes this backwards way of living that is counterproductive for us. So at Black Civic Network, we believe that even in politics, if we have stronger families, we get stronger policies along with stronger communities. So we look to intertwine politics and family all in one. We feel like, when Brother Al Flowers is talking about public safety, we look at the homes that a lot of these young men and women are coming from who are involved in crime in the communities. It's typically because they come from broken homes. They don't have access to some of the resources or some of the stability that strong families would have. So that is our motto, families first. The other thing about myself and Brother Nick Muhammad is that being from Indiana, myself and Brother Nick being from Mississippi, we are transplants to the state of Minnesota, but we're grateful for those things that Minnesota offers us compared to the places that we're from. And so we look forward to making sure that just like when we arrived, there were things in place, we want it to be better than what it was. So when we do transition on or leave on to the next generation, we want to make sure that it's stronger as it should be.
Al Flowers, I have to commend you on the mentoring work you have done. That shows up in the voice and activity of your son, Al Flowers Jr., and a cohort of young leaders, young lions, who are unapologetic, who are clear, and who are committed to organizing at the family, the neighborhood, the residential, the community level. And I think I heard you and Brother Reverend Jerry McAfee on your show maybe last week on KMOJ. And I think you were kind of saying a little of what you said now, reflecting that there's a little angst or concern about not having achieved the specific, enumerated objectives. But Reverend McAfee came back saying, Flowers, don't get it twisted. You did a lot. A lot has happened, and you have to focus on the overall success that your energy and that your work and that your insistence has led to on behalf of all of the community. And so I wanted to see what you thought about what Brother McAfee, Reverend McAfee, was telling you, because that's how it came across to me. It was a word of encouragement and a word of supporting you and asking you not to feel like you didn't achieve, because you did achieve a lot.
Yeah, Al. Well, they Reverend McAfee, Dr. Hightower, Thomas Berry. That's what keep me going, even though it didn't happen the way that we wanted to, and things don't happen the way we wanted to anyway in our community. So, but I thought we had a good shot. But we won. It was some things we could have been prepared for better, and that's because we did get some. It's some stuff out there that's gonna enhance us in the community. Whether it's David McGee or these other organizations, Mother's Love, but it's stuff in there. I'm not saying we didn't get nothing out the equity to work with. I'm just saying it was $18 billion. And we were fighting for the say we trying to get rid of our disparities too, because if you don't, Al, the situation just a few weeks ago I talked about this, about the government ran program GBI, program that's in our community right now, and it's a Fed program. It's and it's either get your stuff together or you going to jail. But it's not you going to jail no more. You going to prison, and we're gonna charge you federally. And it's a lot of guys on that list that don't have nothing.
Let's give people background on that. We did a
Yeah.
story on this a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
That is that the Minnesota federal attorney, the attorney for the U.S. attorney for the District of Minnesota, and colleagues at state and local levels announced the arrest of 45 people out of North Minneapolis and South Minneapolis, Northsiders, associated with what they call the Highs, and the Southsiders associated with a criminal gang that they call the Bloods, I believe, right? And
Right.
The distinction was that the charges were brought under RICO, organized crime, and that's a new twist. It's a new level of engagement by a multi-level but federally led initiative. And so two things are happening. On the one hand, all of us have talked about, as often as not, it seems like several interlocked and sometimes competing dysfunctional individuals and families cluster in ways and around activity that is self-destructive and destructive to the community. And everybody is saying, we want our moms and dads and our children to be able to walk from here to the park, to the grocery store, and not fear getting shot, by a stray bullet or being accosted or attacked. On the other hand, we also know that the history of law enforcement in this country has not been a history of justice. It's been a history of containment. And we are concerned that whatever happens must be reflecting best practices and justice. That's where equity and fairness and justice merge. And we can say, and the record shows, we have been denied that historically by institutional practices that emanate from the enslavement of our people.
Facts.
We weren't seen as human beings. And to some degree, there still is that reminder or remnant of ideology and mindset that sees itself bound to keep us out, keep us down, though it exploits our labor, our bodies, our art, our genius, and denies us opportunity. That's a lot to say, but go ahead, Al. I lost your unmute. You're muted. Unmuted. Yeah, go ahead.
You're fine. Go ahead, talk, Al. You good?
Yeah. Yes, Al, you saying it right, and we not saying we don't know what these guys they talking about RICO. We ain't seen no evidence. Usually, when you got a big mass arrest like that, you would put it on. Hey, look, I got all this the drugs, these guns, all these things. We didn't get none of that. We just got 45 African Americans swooped up. Whether they were dealing with gangs or not, I don't know. That ain't my job to find out. But we ain't seen nothing put on there. They talking about they may have did some. They had a 2-year investigation, and this is why I'm mad about. And I say this about the GBI program, because that's the program. And Spike Moss said, don't do it this way because you're gonna get into people families, and then we get misled. We get misled about the situation. So you have us on the one end. We want safety. But do you want to? When I seen 45 black men sitting on there, you say you've been investigating them 2 years. You've been letting them get in and out of jail. You've been letting them get in and out, and then you do this right in the middle. This is why it bothers me, because we in the middle of fighting for disparities, and some of those people on there is mentally ill. It was a lot of things there. So I got a problem with that, just the way they did it, and they're not through. And these are African American men. I think I seen one white person on it. These are African American men, and they coming to get some more. And they're telling you they're coming to get you. And then they're talking about creating a junior GBI. So while we trying to fight for our economic freedom,
what does GBI stand for?
Gun violence initiative, but it's a fed program, and they was putting millions of dollars into it, Al, with people that didn't have to do nothing. All they had to do was set this, and then if this here gets set up, then now because the same people that work for GBI said we don't work with the police. No, they don't work with the police. They was working with the FBI. So we rather try to work with our people before you get to the federal government, where you where you finna fill up some prison beds with people. Now all of a sudden you know who done it, so you knew who was killing us all the time, and you did nothing. You watched them as we were getting shot and killed, and then said, now let's swoop them all up right for the summer so everybody can go downtown, so they'll feel good that we made these mass arrests on African Americans. And if they did it, like I said, if they did it, you supposed to go to jail. But to do what they did and put us on there looking like animals, you made it and then put that in the paper and everything, and you still ain't put nothing up to show this what they did or the evidence. And then we got to sit back and wait till they do it. And that's why it was hard when I was talking about the disparities that we were fighting for over there. It was a big deal. And like Thomas said about the funds that's coming in now with media, we got to know how to do that. But I think we got Dorothy Bridges over there. Dorothy gonna come to you. She will. Dorothy. That's one of the only ones I'm comfortable about where they put something in, and Senator Champion made it specific that you got to touch African Americans on this. But they ain't got to touch African Americans if they don't get the message to you. You get the message to us so we can put it out there. Then you can't be cheap about marketing in our community. This is a market thing. We have to be able to tell this is what it is. We just like you had it in Inside News. You carried the UBLA. So they know the governor knew, everybody knew. So now how do we access it, Al? And that's my work now. My work from right now until is to make sure that all information. This is how you do it in our community. We got to teach our community. This is how you can get into the business. And the Somali community, they don't own no business on Lake Street. One person owns most of the property that they in, so they don't really own nothing. You rent. You don't own nothing. So so Reverend Hodan is the one that set up the meeting with Dorothy and Renee of NDC, because Meta got 29 million and NDC got money too. So we need both of them to be advertising and Inside News. They need to be on conversations I'll say every week.
Thank you for that. It's a good idea. You're right about that. Let me ask you, though, back to the area about crime. There were several initiatives in our community that were elevated and were getting some support, I believe. Talk about that. And if it's not enough, it's not enough. But if it's different, let's say what it is so people know that some movement has been made in the right direction.
It was different, Al, because they had the money. It come out of GBI, Office of Violence Prevention, and it was different because they didn't have to do nothing. You didn't have to do anything, and now we know why they didn't have to do anything. You didn't have to do because it was really a paid program. So you didn't have to. They didn't have to report or nothing. Then they went through millions. An organization like Mother's Love or Reverend McAfee and them with 21 Days apiece, they couldn't get the resources because they really knew the people. But the ones that didn't know the people was getting a $500,000 contract. They spent over $8 or $9 million. I'd say about $8 million over the past few years, giving it to these groups that they knew weren't gonna do nothing. And those dollars could have went to those people, even start with the 45. You can't tell me if you had that kind of money and then say, hey, look, I'm going to get you a job. I'm going to get you out of this for real. And not tell them, hey, you better get out. I'll give you a bus card. I'll give you something, some token gift while you're taking hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that's what was going on. And it's a fact. And they didn't, and they never had to report. But all they had to do was say, I ain't gonna work with the police, but that was a lie because they was working with the FBI, with the U.S. Attorney, and so that harmed our community just because, not because the 45 they arrested, but all the victims in between that 2 years that they were investigating, and they saying we knew who was doing it. We just left them out there until we can get them all together and RICO them. But we knew what they were doing because they were the one investigating 2 years.
What has to happen from this point going forward? I mean, the question is, what do we have to do as a community to ensure that we have jobs as an alternative to street crime, that we have safety as an alternative to random violence, and that we have a spirit of ownership of our own neighborhoods and of our own future? So how do we continue to advance that thinking in our community, and how do we use the legislature and the allocations that have been made so far and how do we continue to advance our request for additional? I think that if you didn't get the 200 million that you were looking for, doesn't mean you shouldn't keep asking and
Yeah.
shouldn't keep working for it, right? And so what's the plan? What's the vision for staying the course going forward?
Hey, Thomas, let me get this in, Thomas, and then you can jump and wrap, because I want to get this in. It's about that equity where we start. We got to make sure that we get it. If we don't get it, then that's a total failure. If we don't get that, because that's what everybody said. Oh, you did great, but no, I didn't. If we don't get it, then I'm feeling the way I feel right now, Al. And you talked about, because I know we coming up on the show, you talk about the marijuana, the legalization of marijuana. What they did at the last minute on the marijuana thing, when they legalized the marijuana, was strip all the equity out. And so they stripped all the equity out, gave it to two big pharmaceutical companies, and then some people, Anthony Newby, who's been a big part of that. We're gonna have a press conference about that tomorrow. I'm gonna stand with them, because that you took the equity in the conference committee, you took equity out of that right there, and left that, so you left it over there. Then you have Marcus Harkins saying it's okay. Just so you got a brother saying it's okay, one saying it's not, but and then you got to look at he might have an end with the white people and say, I'm finna go, I'm gone. So that's how I look at it right now. It's that equity, and I'll let it go, Thomas. I know I done talked. I should have had an hour, Al. Boy, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, this is all about decency. And so people don't commit crimes when they own homes and they own businesses and they feel like they are part of the fabric of the community. When you feel like you're able to be productive, you just don't want to go to jail. That's what this is all about. This is what they did for the gangs inside of the 1930s and 40s that were European immigrants in the United States. They made sure that they gave them a right to decency. And this is very problematic that we are lacking that here inside of the Twin Cities. When we can talk about a community stealing $145 million for the Feed the Children's program, but we can't even get $200 million for productivity inside of our community. Those are the things that when we talk about the disparities, that's why the disparities constantly grow. As you see, money can be wasted, and then there's money that can be used for productive gains. The other thing too is this, as you stated earlier, brother McFarlane, the government or the police have never done right by our people. Locking these young folks up into the federal government, that's not going to help our community. As a matter of fact, it's a reincarnation of mass incarceration from the 90s, which was also authored by who? Joe Biden, the current president. So we're seeing some of these past ghosts coming back to the present. I'm worried about the junior GBI, because if that follows in the steps of what went on with the adult version, that means that they're going to start back putting our juvenile youth back into the federal prison. And let me state this, those kids are not committing crimes that are RICO worthy. RICO means that these are organized gangs. There is no more organized gangs in America anymore. Most of these young men operate in cliques. Most of these young men do things sporadically. They're doing things that they see on TV. This is not the same thing from the 90s or mafia-like things. It's very impulsive. It's very erratic. Thanks to social media, it's all over the place. But for the most part, violence has gone down inside of the country. What we're asking for is just the right to make sure that people have access to trades more so than switches for guns. We're asking for people to have rights to education more so than access to legal marijuana. And one point on that, I had a conversation with Brother Marcus Harkins, and I told him this 5 years ago. I said, brother, what they're going to do is they're going to use you guys as the face for this legal marijuana thing. And in the last moment, they're going to take you guys out of it. And it's going to be a big pharma company and white corporations that are going to be able to have a lot of the land. I told them that. And so we're here. And we're here. Oh, well, hey, the chickens have come home to roost. And so we already told our folks this. And you guys know that this is not marijuana that most of these young folks are smoking. These things are laced with all kinds of other chemicals. So it's not natural marijuana. And people are not going to be using medical marijuana. Yes, they may have medical marijuana cards, but the police don't have any type of way to trace if the marijuana that they're actually using or the edibles that they're actually eating is coming from a pharmaceutical place. So this puts our community back in harm's way. It has us doped up, it has us unaware, and it makes us ready for the prisons to be filled all over again. So these are some of the things that I feel like collectively. And here's the thing, I'm not against legalizing marijuana. I'm not whatsoever. But I am against the idea that you make us do the grunt work, you make us be the face of anything, and then you turn around and you reap the rewards. This is what structural racism does to our people consistently. That's why we stand on the side of Brother Al and the rest of the community on the ideas of just the tangible things. Let's get more home ownership. Let's get more businesses. Let's get more folks educated. Let's create more families. Let's create more safer streets, and we'll deal with the rest of the stuff as it comes.
Brother Yogi, as you hear this conversation, you used to live here in Twin Cities. You're living in a community like ours in Bahia. How does this conversation resonate with the call, the demand for change, for inclusion, for recognition, and for opportunity that our people are presenting that I think is not very different in Bahia than here? What do you think?
Well, here we are still behind in the struggle for legalization of even medicinal or recreational. You know, the stigma here is bigger, but there is different approaches here too, where if you are, it's not a medical license, as, but in certain way, you can protect yourself with the law, doing an habeas corpus, for example, and if you want to plant your own. But here, I was interesting to hear the young brother talking. I also want to congratulate him for this very articulated way of explaining what's going on. So, and I was surprised of him saying that there is no gangs anymore in the United States, where, as it was before as an organization, where here is the opposite. Here there is crime did get organized, and there is a lot of factions, and they, you know, maybe right now we are living the 80s as far as the idea of gangs here in Brazil. So, you know, violence is strong. Uh, you know, horrible and banal crimes happens daily, several. You know, and this, it's like wow. Now that I don't live anymore in Minnesota, they they legalize marijuana. But yeah, we are. It's a great advancement, certainly for Minnesota, and is
What about
unfortunately
the issue
and
of
as
police community relations? Uh, is there a sense that the system structurally disadvantages uh, Afro descendant people in Bahia, as we have described here? Ours, we say, is a consequence of the original contact between our people as Africans and the colonizer. What's the sense there?
it's similar, but the difference here is that the police is also black,
Mhm.
you know, and is a majority black population in Brazil in general, and particularly here in these states. So the police, moreover, even let's say the foot soldiers of the police, you know, in the upper echelons, you see people are a little lighter skin, but you know the police here is black too, and they do have this the approach that are, you know, as animalistic as it is in the U.S. Here,
Mhm.
we are going through the discussion about the implementation of body cams in into the police. Here, the police, for example, uses facial recognition at a great deal. So they do capture a lot of fugitives on the streets or on shows, on bus stations and stuff. So since they implement, and this is growing, but the understanding of the population understanding of their own rights as far as privacy and all these things are different. So we are years behind having marijuana legalized for recreational ways, even though that it's widespread.
We got about a minute or so left. Al Flowers, if you're still there, or Thomas Berry, anything on your agenda organizationally to keep the energy moving so that we don't lose the momentum such as it was, and the interest, because anytime you're talking about 17, $18 billion, people perk up and they pay attention. How do we capitalize on that, Al Flowers, and keep our issues in front of the people? Got about a minute. Yeah. No, you're muted. Here we go.
Well, I would say that we have to just stay engaged, and we have to make sure that we allow the people to know as much as possible, as well as talk truth to power. We just can't go along to get along, and we also have to demand our legislators to be great. They're good right now, but we need to demand them to be great. One last point. Dr. King came here in one of his final speeches at the University of Minnesota. He said moderation is the enemy of Black folks. I will tell you that moderation is still the enemy of Black folks. And even though we got a bite of the apple, we actually need the whole apple to be whole. So we got to make sure that we get that whole apple.
Thomas Berry, Al Flowers, my colleague Yogi Sena from Bahia, Brazil. Thank you all for being here. We're going to keep this focus on the outcome of the legislature, the programs that did get money and how that money is flowing to the community. And our idea is not to say the problem has been solved, because it has not, but to say we have work to do and that we are equal to the task, and let us keep working. I'm Al McFarlane. Again, reminding you to pay attention to, even though we've come past the COVID crisis pandemic, you have to pay attention and work with our partners at Minnesota Department of Health to learn how you can protect yourself, your family, by testing and by being vaccinated, by establishing healthy protocols. See you tomorrow. Take care. I'm Al McFarlane.